Hello friends, welcome to PulsePoint. In this episode, Christian voices go silent in Parliament. Kamala Harris mocks Christians. New palliative care bill looks to push euthanasia to the side. And the Italian government cracks down on surrogacy. This and much more to come. Let's get into it. I'm James Williams. According to the 2023 census, 32.3% of New Zealanders are Christian. This is nearly 1 in every 3 people, and to put it into numbers, it's nearly 1.615 million people. Despite this, it seems that hardly any Christian voice can be heard in Parliament's debating chamber these days. There are a myriad of issues which go through Parliament that sing out for a Christian or socially conservative perspective to be made loud and clear. So, how come nothing is said? Surely, if nearly a third of the population identify as Christian, this should be a strong voice of reason in the halls of power. So, is it that Christians in politics are remaining silent? Is it that political parties are not choosing strong, moral Christian people to represent the public of New Zealand? Is it that the media simply don't report socially conservative points of view? Well, any of these reasons are very concerning. For example, this week the Green Party got rid of its former rogue MP Darlene Tana, who proudly acclaimed that her pronouns are they and them, as she never walks alone. The new Green MP is this guy, Benjamin Doyle, a proudly LGBTQ 30-something-year-old who has they, he, ear pronouns, and wants to fight for climate and social justice. While I'm not surprised, given it's the Green Party, I do ask, is more liberal leftist ideologues in Parliament what this country needs right now? You just need to look at the Green Party's recent past to answer that question.
I am a prevention violence minister, and I know who causes violence in the world. It is white cis men.
The Greens are denying the party's been slow to act after learning an MP was accused of migrant worker exploitation.
But while it's not a written rule per se, surely it is a necessity for Parliament to truly represent the people it governs. Given that nearly a third of the population are Christian, it must fall upon the main parties, especially those leading the country, to consciously choose candidates which represent certain parts of society, and to make sure that this is proportionately measured. This is proudly undertaken for some sections of society, especially those deemed PC or woke. However, it seems that vocal, Christian and socially conservative voices are off the table. There was this guy, you'll remember.
I call Simon O'Connor.
Against the spirit of free speech, Mr. Speaker, may I suggest, and for mine, you can turn your hearing aid off for 5 minutes and then turn it back on. Mr. Speaker, to illustrate the very problem that the left and the radical left are putting across tonight, I would just like to say I have found every contribution from the Labour Party and the Greens, $200,000 Chloe Srawbuck, offensive. It's hurt me. I'm mentally anguished by what they've said. My tribe, my community, my identity has been deeply offended. And no one on that side can dare to critique that, because that's my experience. That's right. Don't you dare question what I'm feeling. My feelings trump anything you think, anything your group thinks. My tribe, my feelings are right. And I am very upset tonight. Mr. Speaker, I want everything that the Labour Party and the radical Greens say banned. I don't want to see them on the universities, because if I walk there tomorrow, I could have a hurt feeling. That's right. I could have a hurt feeling. You know what? I could go to a university and someone could say, Simon O'Connor, we don't agree with you. Oh. And you know what? That's just going to cut, according to the Labour Party, so much to my heart. Yeah. They're going to say, gosh, you're a Catholic. Oh, what terrible sin could that be? That's a terrible thing, and I feel really hurt about that. You're an academic, you've studied, you're privileged. Gosh, that's going to hurt. Mr. Speaker, I'm doing this as parody because what doesn't seem to get the left is that freedom of speech relies on the ability for actually an array of ideas. And the whole point of freedom of speech is not for the speech we agree with, it's the speech we don't.
That's right.
And unfortunately, our universities have been captured by a bunch of left-wing progressives. And it only needs one quick example. AUT University, I've written to them recently. Guess what, Mr. Speaker? A bunch of women, if that's probably the wrong pronoun and collective pronoun anyway, but a bunch of women, want to be really specific about that gender, a bunch of women wanted to go on to the university to talk about women. And you know what happened? They were banned. Women were banned from talking about women's rights. And not only that, they were abused, they were given hateful speech, they were harassed, they were bullied from people who call them inclusion officers, from academics. It's an absolute disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. And let's be under no illusion here. This has nothing to do with freedom of speech from the other side. It's all about control. You will only be allowed to think, say and preach what they believe in. That is autocracy, that is a totalitarian mindset, and it infects like a virus our universities. It's an absolute cancer, and like any cancer, and the doctors know this, you rip it out.
Now, look, I did try to make that clip shorter, but it was just too good. We definitely need more of that in our debating chamber. Let me make it clear, Simon O'Connor, now part of the team here at Family First, had no editorial decisions in running the story. However, when I asked him, he was kind enough to give some testimony. Here's why he thinks Christian and socially conservative voices have gone silent.
Look, there's at least three reasons that are coming immediately to mind. I mean, firstly, it's sad that they're not speaking up as much as I think we would like. To be honest, I think it takes a lot of courage. But, you know, three reasons. One is, and you see this in Christian leadership in general, a lot of the Christian viewpoints or positions have been thumped over the last few years. So abortion, euthanasia, marriage, the Christian church overall has been on the losing side. And, you know, we're all human, and there's a cost with that. And again, you see it in wider Christian leadership on a number of topics these days. So that's the first. Secondly, New Zealand's media shows very little of any toleration of a Christian MP. If you put your view forward from a Christian perspective, or as I found myself just being a Christian, you're going to come under heavy fire. You're going to be either ignored or attacked simply for being Christian, mocked, pilloried. So it's not a particularly comfortable space to be in. And we're also seeing, I think, in the wider politics, there's just a non-acceptance or an unacceptance of the Christian viewpoint. And for a lot of MPs, I think, particularly who are ambitious or are just wanting to get ahead, holding a Christian viewpoint and speaking to it is seen as costly, career limiting. And, it's that old thing of, keep your religious view private, which is sad because no one seems to keep, their Marxist views or communist views private. But I think it's very difficult. And I think a lot of, good Christian MPs decide to keep their faith quiet or not speak into certain topics because it's just not a very comfortable place to be. And I think that's unfortunate.
He says Christian or conservative MPs have to be cautious of compromising too much.
But what I have seen happen too often is MPs who decide, I'm not going to speak up on my Christian values now because I need to position myself better. And so they compromise in order to get higher up the ladder or higher up the chain. But my observation is as they keep going up the chain, there's always more compromise to be had because they want to go a little bit further. And they tell themselves the lie ultimately, well, if I get into a really senior position, then I'll be able to express my Christian faith. But by and large, they never do.
And while Christian MPs remain silent, those who have pushed through what many describe as evil leftist legislation are being praised at the highest levels.
The Right Honourable Dame Jacinda Ardern for services to the state.
It's a huge honour, I feel really...
I'll highlight a few of the accomplishments of Dame Jacinda Ardern while she was in power. Extreme abortion expansion legalised. LGBT conversion therapy, prayer and counselling criminalised. Euthanasia legalised. anti-pro-life zones established outside of abortion clinics. Look, I could go on for much longer, as there is a long list. If Christians and social conservatives continue to be silent, this is set to get much worse. We may not get the honours here on earth, but we can affect change in this country of ours so that the next generations will also have the opportunity to hear a Christian and socially conservative voice in society. If we don't speak up now, we may lose the chance to do so. And while this topic is focused on those in the beehive, we must also play our part. Reach out to the Christian and social conservative MPs that you know or that may be representing you, and encourage them to be strong and take a stand. In your families, friend groups and workplaces, make sure you are also making your voice heard. Be brave in the face of persecution. Like us here at Family First, be unapologetically pro-life, pro-family and pro-freedom of choice. Hold people to account. Make sure that those who have not considered a socially conservative opinion on a certain matter are given that chance. And let's face it, standing together as brothers and sisters, all doing our part, we give power to our like-minded parliamentarians to have courage, to stand strong. With less than 2 weeks to go till the US election, Kamala Harris has shown her true colours and publicly mocked Christians. Not once, but twice. The first came through a recorded video she produced to be shown at the Al Smith dinner. The dinner, which happens in New York to raise funds for Catholic charities, is usually attended by both presidential candidates and has become well known as the last event where they share the stage before the election. While Donald Trump was there, Kamala declined the invitation, instead sending this video, which many Catholics find offensive and simply a mockery of their faith.
Your Eminence and distinguished guests, the Al Smith dinner provides a rare opportunity to set aside partisanship.
Cool. Oh, sorry.
Hey, what's going on? Who was that?
Oh, sorry, Mary Catherine Gallagher. Mary Catherine Gallagher. It's so nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you, Mary Catherine. Right now I'm trying to record my speech for tonight's dinner.
Oh, yeah, I know. I just want to say that I'm Catholic, and tonight is one of the biggest dinners next to the Last Supper.
It is a very important dinner, and it's an important tradition that I'm so proud to be a part of.
Sometimes when I get nervous, I stick my fingers under my arms and I symbol them like that. But that's gross.
So tell me something. I'm giving a speech. Do you have some thoughts about what I might say tonight?
My feelings about what you should say tonight would be best expressed in a monologue from one of my favorite made-for-TV series.
Okay, let's hear it.
Don't you see, man? We need a woman to represent us. A woman brings more heart, more compassion. And think how smart she must be to become a top contender in a field dominated by men. It's time for a woman, bro. And with this woman, we can fly.
What series was that from?
Oh, that's from House of Dragons, now streaming on HBO Max.
Is there anything that you think that maybe I shouldn't bring up tonight?
Well, don't lie. Thou shalt not bear false witness to thy neighbor.
Indeed, especially thy neighbor's election results.
Just so you know, there will be a fact checker there tonight.
Oh, that's great. Who?
Jesus. And maybe don't say anything negative about Catholics.
I would never do that, no matter where I was. That would be like criticizing Detroit in Detroit.
Blatant mocking to one side. Interestingly, did you hear? She said, "I'd never do that." Well, she did. The second occasion was at Harris's own rally when 2 college students yelled out, "Christ is King," and then, "Jesus is Lord."
Christ is King! Jesus is Lord!
Now, if you didn't quite hear that, Kamala Harris responded by saying, "I think you guys went to the wrong rally." She then went on to say that the people who yelled out should have been at the Trump rally down the road. The best response to all this came from Dr. Ben Carson, a former Republican presidential candidate and renowned paediatric neurosurgeon. Take a look.
We have a Department of Justice that's being used by the party in power to persecute and prosecute their political opponents, something you would expect in Russia or China or Banana Republic, occurring blatantly right in our country. And interestingly enough, we have somebody who's running for president who recently said in a crowd when somebody said, Jesus Christ is Lord, that you're in the wrong crowd. Think about that. You know, in Matthew 12:34, it says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. She didn't have time to think about what she was going to say. She just said what's in her heart. So maybe she's the one who doesn't belong. Maybe that's what we should be thinking about.
And for more on the US election, be sure to check out the recent McBlog episode where both Trump and Harris are questioned over their stance on certain transgender issues. Back home now, and New Zealand First MP Tanya Unkovich has introduced a private member's bill to improve access to palliative care. This comes on the back of continued efforts to expand euthanasia laws at the same time the current laws are creating ethical issues that are being poorly monitored. Tanya Unkovich says quality palliative care should be a human right and every person should have access to support, comfort and dignity at the time they need it the most. The bill amends 2 key acts to enhance palliative care access and sets in motion a blueprint to secure funding to improve services. Thank you to New Zealand First and Tanya Unkovich for this work. Previous governments have made little effort to increase funding for this essential service, but have rather prioritised euthanasia. Some hospitals have no specialist palliative care services at all. And in fact, in the latest review of the End of Life Choice Act, it was highlighted that 1 in 4 applicants were not receiving palliative care at the time of their application for euthanasia, which may have influenced their decision. Demand for this specialist medical care will only increase significantly in the near future. Our population is ageing and therefore the number of people requiring palliative care is forecast to increase by approximately 25% over the next 15 years and will be more than double that by 2061. Family First is calling on all political parties to unite and fast-track this bill for the benefit of all New Zealanders with a terminal illness. Italy's government has taken a strong stance on surrogacy, implementing laws which ban its citizens from using overseas surrogates to obtain a baby. Currently in Italy, there is a prohibition on surrogacy, and this new law closes the door on Italians, mostly in homosexual relationships, using people in foreign countries to obtain a baby. Those caught breaking the new law face jail time and considerable fines. While Italy and other European nations, including Spain, France, Germany and Sweden, have banned surrogacy, New Zealand's Parliament is currently considering expanding the current legislation to make it easier for couples, like those in homosexual relationships, to use a surrogate. For more on this, head to our website. Founder and president of global group Them Before Us, Katie Faust, says surrogacy is banned in many parts of the world because it turns babies into a commodity that can be simply bought, and women's wombs into spaces that can be rented out. She says surrogacy is all about the rights and wants of the adults involved and neglects the rights of the child. She says attempts to try to equate surrogacy to adoption is wrong.
The similarity is the child had to lose something to be in that family. The difference is that in adoption is a just society's attempt to mend that loss. Surrogacy is the commercial infliction of the loss because the adults want it that way. So one seeks to mend a wound, the other one inflicts the wound. Here's another huge difference. I used to be the assistant director of the largest Chinese adoption agency in the world. One of the things that I was responsible for was compliance with international, federal, and state level laws. And one of those major requirements is that money never went from the adoptive parents to the genetic parents, from the intended parents to the birth parents. Like my husband and I are adoptive parents. What would happen if some of the money that we spent during our adoption went directly to my son's birth parent, in essence, to pay them to relinquish him to us? That would no longer be a legitimate adoption. That would be baby buying.
Katie Faust says there are also conflicts of interest which become clear as the child grows older and has questions.
You know, my husband and I, we didn't choose for him to experience the loss that he had to undergo before he joined our family. And because we weren't responsible for it, we actually can enter into it. We can let him be honest. He can ask us his questions. We can mourn with him if he expresses sadness about it. That's not really the case with children created through third-party reproduction, because if they talk to the parents that are raising them about their identity struggles or the anxiety around maybe maternal separation or their feeling of being abandoned if the parents leave without telling them, to run to the grocery store or something. And they say, I think that maybe this had to do with my surrogacy or because I didn't know my father or whatever. They're actually talking to the people that are responsible for the child's loss. And so the one study that we have that compares outcomes between adoptees and children created through sperm donation showed that the adoptees fare better because I think they're able to be open with their adoptive parents, because the adoptive parents were seeking to mend the wound. They're also sad that it didn't work out for the child to remain with the birth mother or the birth parents, whereas the sperm donor kids, they're talking with the people that inflicted the wound and sometimes paid $75 for the dad to stay out of their life because they just wanted what they wanted. So psychologically, it's a very different kind of relationship for adoptees versus children created through third parties.
Make sure to check out Katie Faust's full interview on the Family First website. And finally, this week's Family Matters episode is on religious freedom. Simon O'Connor talks to Päivi Räsänen, a Finnish MP who is being taken to court for simply quoting the Bible.
She stated that if I would be convicted, she said that the Bibles can still be in libraries and you are allowed to discuss about Bible. But what is crucial, where is the red line, is if you publicly say that you agree with the Bible. So I think that if I would be finally convicted in this case, it would mean that the time of the persecution against Christians, it would start, because then it would not anymore be legal to say that you agree with the Bible, that you agree what Apostle Paul said in the first chapter of the Romans about marriage.
Be sure to watch the entire Family Matters episode on the Family First social media pages or on our website. Thank you for watching PulsePoint. You can check out more on our website, familyfirst.nz. I'm James Williams. See you next week.